Seven.
7,000,000.
7 new.
7.
7. 7. 7.
7 Point Highlander.
Hello, and welcome to 7 Point Cast. My name is Liam, and I'm joined by my co-host Mouse.
Hello. Very glad to be here.
Today we'll be speaking with Nat Bass. Nat, how you going?
Yeah, pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Before we get into the decks, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as a Magic player and how you got into 7 Point Highlander?
Sure. I've been playing Magic for about 12 years now, which makes me feel very old. Started like 2013, like last year of high school, and then just played Limited for a while. I think probably Isaac was one of the big people who tried to get me into Highlander. Just every single time would offer to lend cards, and sort of slowly started building decks and playing terrible combos.
Oh yeah, so a brewer from the beginning. Could I also say the last year of high school is the correct year to get into it. The early years can be rough with all of the seniors like kicking your cards, calling you a nerd, but by the time you're on top, it's safe to play Magic, you know?
Well, there was no one in high school that really played. I started just like, this is probably an old reference, but there was Good Games in the City up like an old flight of stairs next to a Korean travel agent that I just took the train in by myself and started going to Friday Night Magic. That was my start.
Yeah, did you ever have that awkward experience of explaining to your parents, like, I am going to this event store. They're like, oh, who are your friends? It's like, well, they're all like 30-plus-year-old dudes. You know?
Yes, I definitely had that. My parents were like, "Oh, surely it's all teenagers," and I went, "No,
Yeah.
actually, I'm the youngest person there." So
Yeah. They start asking more questions, like, so these adults, and you can hear the inverted commas like on their lips. You know, it's like, what do they do in their lives? You know, like they're trying to decipher why they're playing a card game.
for sure.
But now that's us. You know, now we are the adults.
God
Although,
forbid you have a hobby.
yeah, I know. Like, and one of the reasons we were very excited to get you onto the pod, of course, is because you're like a known brewer of eccentric decks and stuff which is off meta. And that's like one of the big joys of 7 Point Highlander is seeing that kind of stuff be successful. Liam, what deck are we going to talk about first?
We've got two lined up for today, and the first one is Artifact Combo. I looked at the deck before and I was like, I'm just calling it Artifact Combo. I don't know what else to call it. So maybe you could give us a walkthrough. Noting for people now, this deck was played at the Winter Lotus event, so it's currently 11 points. Unfortunately, you will not be able to experience the power of the deck anymore.
You can definitely change some points around. I've been thinking about what to do with it, but yeah, Black Lotus, unfortunately, a little bit too powerful, and probably got what it deserved. Artifact Combo, I've always kind of enjoyed Artifact piles in Highlander. They have a very high power level, sorry, because the community kind of wants to point the fast mana, and my heuristic has always been that the artifacts are the best way to get the fast mana. Things like Mana Vault, things like Mana Crypt, when that was, I don't know, like 3 points. I have an old deck list that's like 22 points or something, because it's just like Mana Crypt and Soul Ring and a bunch of things that are now
just
4 to 5 points.
You've said the MC word twice. If you say it
Yeah.
a third time, Lewis is going to appear and tell us it's only 5 points. Okay, just fair warning.
I do remember though when Mana Crypt was 2 points, because I used to really want to put Affinity together, and I just used to think to myself, the Mana Crypt lets me cast the 3-drop artifact on turn 1. The Soul Ring lets me cast the 3-drop artifact on turn 2. How is the Mana Crypt less than the Soul Ring? It's actually crazy how underpointed that was for a long time.
And the Mana Crypt casts the Soul Ring, which then casts the other big thing. So it's
Yeah.
like it's just free real estate. It kind of just goes up the chain. So that's kind of been my idea for a while. And to be honest, a lot of it is also, once I get the cards, I'm like, well, now I'm going to build the cards in every deck that I can. I own the cards physically. Let's put them as many piles as I can. So this deck kind of came about over a while of thinking how to get Urza Saga and Painter Servant into some sort of deck. It kind of started out, if memory serves, it started as a mostly red-black pile
Mhm.
because Chaos Defiler ended up coming out, and I really love Chaos Defiler, just the card. This deck has a couple of Universes Beyond cards that I know a lot of people get frustrated at, and in general, I don't adore the Universes Beyond, but there's something about some of the cards like Chaos Defiler and like Iron Man and Banishment of the Universe that just kind of tickle my fancy a little bit. I quite enjoy them.
Mhm.
And you were talking about being a brewer before, and there is something enjoyable about forcing my opponents to read my cards.
Yeah, I know. It's
um,
the psychic damage, isn't it? It's like, ha, they don't know what I'm capable of, you know?
yeah, putting something into play, and my opponent's just like freaking out internally because they're like, I have no idea what this is gonna do. Like, this could end the game on the spot. So yeah, this kind of started as like red, white, black piles. I slowly started working on a couple of the early creatures that I thought would facilitate the game plan. Things like Goblin Engineer, Goblin Welder. I hadn't really seen them a lot in Highlander at the time.
Mm.
I started working on a deck that looked similar to this maybe 2 years ago. I played something like it at one of the team events at Plenty of Games. Uh, and I think if memory serves, I think we maybe lost in top 4 with that deck in the team event. But
Mhm.
it's I just sort of slowly started thinking maybe I add more colors, maybe I add like it started off as 2 colors, then 3 colors, then 4 colors, and I just slowly lost more and more respect for Blood Moon effects and decided it'll be fine. Like, I'm just going to put all of the powerful artifact cards into one pile, and you know, you have enough artifact mana that it probably doesn't matter if someone wants to. I mean, back to basics is pretty much unbeatable. But if someone wants to Harbinger of the Seas me or Blood Moon me or any of that kind of thing, I thought I'm just going to give up on trying to beat those. Um, and some of the evolution of this deck also came a lot from chatting to Shane Cutting from Adelaide, who played a similar list to this for the Winter Black Lotus, but was on Time Vault instead of Black Lotus. We both kind of stole ideas from each other, got Iron Man in the deck, got a bunch of artifact shooters, and decided on different primary win cons. I ended up with the Auriok Salvage's Bomberman combo, whereas he ended up with the Time Vault. Both similar idea being that this deck has a lot of artifact shooters. Like now, again, as we discussed, it's 11 points, but Tezzeret being able to get a lot of your target artifacts. Iron Man searches up basically everything. Oswald Fiddlebender. I think shooters are just one of the best thing to be doing in Highlander. If you're not just playing a generic good game plan, the shooters are what you need to be doing to find all your pieces in time. And I think this deck does it pretty well.
Yeah, I know. Look, you got Urza Saga as well, which is kind of like a special kind of tutor in that it's very, very hard to counter. Like it's it's just a triggered rather than like something you have to cast. Um, I want to ask about the colors. Like, so one of the things which you were saying obviously is that look, you know what, it's not worth it to be like resilient against Blood Moon. I'm just going to play all of the best artifacts. But I noticed, for example, in black, it's like just Baleful Strix and Entomb. Um, and it like the deck looks kind of like primarily Jeskai. But even then in white, it's like what, like 5 cards? It's like Savine's Portable Hole, Pre-War, Fiddlebender, Salvages, Teferi. Like these are in many ways very, very light splashes. How does the mana feel when you're playing these cards? Like, is Baleful Strix there to just almost be tutored off an upgrade from a Fiddlebender? Like, is that how it makes its way into play, or are you like fetching for lands with black mana on them? And yeah, like give us a bit of an idea of how the mana actually plays out.
I mean, in Highlander, when you're playing all the dual lands and you're not playing a 8-point deck, I think you have a lot of access to all the colors if you need it, depending on the amount of fetch lines in your deck. People can construct their mana bases pretty easily to play all the cards that you want to. So while a lot of those cards do tend to be tutor targets, things like Baleful Strix are pretty easy to reanimate. Things like you can Fiddlebender your Baleful Strix into a pre-war, put it back into play, draw another card. There are a lot of sort of value lines with that where it ends up you don't actually have to cast them. My idea with this was kind of just to put most of the most powerful cards from some of those colors. Like things like Entomb is a very light splash again, and it's sometimes hard to cast, but it's just so powerful. Being able to put like a Dragon Engine for value into the graveyard, or being able to just get the Lion's Eye Diamond at the end of turn, untap with the Aureox Salvages for the infinite mana combo. There are just a bunch of different things that you can do, or like the missing artifact piece. Sometimes I would put a One Ring into play, One Ring into the graveyard with Entomb, and then put it back into play with Welder. The Baleful Strix, I always and still think the Baleful Strix might be a little bit much, but it's just such a powerful card from both like a value, from a mid-range game plan, which this deck does play quite a lot. I think Shane would probably agree that a lot of both of our games with this sort of style of deck came down to mid-range wins. People would spend a lot of time, especially after sideboard, trying to null rod you, trying to collector oof you, all those kinds of effects, and just be sideboarding in your quantum riddlers, your mid-range things, and like Iron Man has an incredible ability to find all your tutors, but it is just a flying 5-mana 4/4 with haste. So people, I think, very often underestimated just getting attacked multiple times with that creature. Those color requirements ended up not mattering too much when the cards you were playing are just so powerful.
Do you think that it's the case that combo decks in this format do need a plausible mid-range plan? Like, is that like a feature of your deck, or do you think it's endemic to the format that unless you've got like a serviceable plan B, it is too easy to just be hated out by these hoses?
It probably depends how aware people are of your strategy. Like, I'm talking about the combo decks with sort of the pivot sideboard plans. Obviously, Storm was one of the big decks coming into the Winter Lotus, which also had that kind of mid-range pivot sideboard plan. And I know Richard worked a lot on that and made it very popular. But I do think that you can also with these decks just put a bunch of the destruction effects in your sideboard if you want to. Like if you were playing a more dedicated combo deck, it's kind of the easier option. I think a mid-range swap is easier for the brain because you can just full shift into the mid-range plan. Whereas
you heard it here
I
first,
don't think
boys.
you have
Mid-range players are small brain, low IQ.
It's not at all. No, of course not. They're just not as high-brained as the combo players. No. It does make it easier, I think. I think in any format for Magic, sideboarding, like making sideboarding easier for yourself, is a good thing. Like if you are deciding, because every single time I've either given this deck to someone or given any combo deck to someone and talked about it with people, one of the hardest things is what do I cut, right? Because you can't actually cut that many of your combo pieces post board, but it's a very easy like shift in mindset if you just go, I'm just going to cut all of my combo pieces post board and bring in mid-range plan, right? Like with this deck, a lot of the time I would just like you were talking about Urza's Saga before, and I think when I'm building decks, I've very often been putting Painted Servant combo into decks with Urza's Saga just because I feel like it's not a free roll, but having half of the combo being able to tutor with Urza's Saga means that I'm kind of incentivized to put this I win combo into my deck. But that is one that is almost always coming out post-board because people become aware of it, they add more artifact removal, all that kind of thing. So like cutting those combos immediately and bringing in the Chaos Defiler, the Deadpool, the Duretti, like all these mid-range things, I don't have to think anymore about finding my combo pieces. I just draw the cards and I play them.
Yeah. I want to ask a little bit about some of these like engines. So one, there's like kind of two engines, they kind of go hand in hand a little bit, is these artifacts which do things when they enter and leave. And then the other part of that is, of course, like welders, like, or your pseudo welders, like your emeries and fiddlebenders and stuff like that. With your like artifacts that do things when they enter and leave, I can see that we've got Baleful Strix, we've got Chainsaw, which is, I guess, like removal. Am I missing? We've got like, Portable Hull comes in and gets something as a one shot, I suppose, like pre-war to reanimate something. Am I missing any of these crucial artifact bits and pieces? Oh, Dragon
think-
Engine, of course, as well.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think Dragon Engine is the big one where when I first put it in the deck, when I build Highlander decks, a lot of the time I look at Legacy. I know some people discuss looking at Vintage as a comparison point, but I find Vintage doesn't usually work for me because just because they have the extra power level in Vintage compared to something like Highlander. I think Highlander sits much closer to Legacy than it does to Vintage most of the time. So I often look at Legacy decks as inspiration for Highlander cards. And, looking at the Painter Servant decks in Legacy, I looked at Dragon Engine and I thought, well, they're all playing at least one of. It is more easily tutorable when you have the 4 engineers, but I'll still give it a shot. And it was just consistently one of the best cards in the deck. Being able to pre-war formware it, being able to Savins, like engineer or welder it back in, and just keep the chain of cards coming. People had to start answering it, and
I agree. Like, as someone who's been on the other side of the table from Dragon Engine, it does look like a dopey card. And for those who haven't heard of it, it's called Phyrexian Dragon Engine. It's a 3-mana 2/2. But if it ETBs from the graveyard, you discard your hand to draw 3, and you can unearth it for 5. It has like a meld, but that's irrelevant. And the thing is that obviously, if you have your engines and welders, then the bringing it back is trivial. But it also has that if you're completely out of stonks, you can just unearth it and keep going anyway. And usually when this card gets going, you don't just unearth the Dragon Engine once, right? Like usually if you've got the welder or something, it's something which is happening like, several times in a game.
Yeah, and the unearth having haste is also surprisingly relevant for things like Agatha Soul Cauldron. It's kind of a creature out of nowhere that you can have with tap effects.
Wait, how does that work? Sorry, with the Soul Cauldron?
If you unearth it, it ends up with haste. And so a couple of times what I was doing was I was unearthing it using maybe a mana vault, like the excess mana that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And Agatha Soul Cauldron could put a counter on it, which would give it the ability of, say, Oswald Fiddlebender or Goblin Welder or something similar. So it's sometimes an option as a out of nowhere haste creature that can gain an activated ability that will win you the game.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, another interesting angle I was looking at the deck is, for example, with Baleful Strix of the Mana. Have you considered any of the ones like Crygen Relic? It's that new artifact, which like it draws a card when you enter or leave, or is it being a creature like a really important feature?
Being a creature, again, I think also being part of the mid-range plan, I've definitely considered a lot of those kinds of cards, and I do have some way in my Moxfield pile, which is probably way too long. And I was discussing with, I think, Trent the other day, talking about like a Crackline Ironworks deck lists that I have worked on a bunch in the past. But I think in this deck, while it's easier on the mana, it's just not as powerful. I think, as I was saying before, going into the Lotus event, I was kind of with the idea of put the most powerful cards in deck that I can and try not to worry too much about the mana, because I think my takeaway was that I felt like I already had an okay matchup against the kind of Blue Moon decks, and that was the main one that was going to stop me from casting this card. Besides some level of inconsistency, most of the mana base is pretty consistent. The only thing in the mana base that's kind of difficult is the A, Arena of Glory, and B, mostly the Seed of the Synod. I mean, Seed of the Synod casted. I guess maybe the Arena of Glory has been the main one, deciding if that is worth having, but it's just so powerful with the welder effects, with the Goblin Welder and the Goblin Engineer, that I decided I probably needed it.
I do like the subtle mention to the considering pile, where I don't know how many deck lists I built where it's like 60 main, 15 side, considering 200 cards.
I think I've often had my considering not within Moxfield, but like just as a pile of cards next to my computer, and I just sometimes look through them like, surely one of these cards is good now, right?
Yeah.
I had just a question if we zoom out a little bit, particularly with the Oriox Salvages combo. So you use that combo to make infinite mana, but I'm not seeing like a lot of ways to use the infinite mana, like maybe Urza and maybe Tezzeret just getting a whole bunch of counters and ulting him. What's the utility of including that combo and then, the opportunity cost of playing Black Lotus for another set of points?
I have played something like this in the past with just Lion's Eye Diamond, and I think you can, which may be where I end up with this deck, which is, you can just set all your tutors up to find LED and not have Black Lotus. It gives you less of a powerful, sometimes turn 1 of a 4 drop. Auroch Salvages is, exceptionally powerful effect. You don't really need a lot. Once you have infinite mana, once I say, I have infinite mana, it doesn't take much to win the game. Pyrite Spellbomb is the sort of default tutor to just tell your opponent, okay, I can deal 2 damage to you as many times as I want, you're going to lose the game. But failing that, you can also just go find the Painter's Servant combo. That's another thing. Draw through your deck. Any of your 1 mana artifacts is going to draw you through your deck. So the Vexing Bauble, the Soul Guide Lantern, technically the Baubles can do it too, but there's that obviously weird, awkward timing where you can get them back as many times as you want, and then draw 40 in your opponent's upkeep.
Oh yeah, I didn't quite clock that you could stop doing the pedal or the lotus and then start doing the cycling cards. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's part of the incentive for having some more instant speed removal in the deck. I think I only basically have the Swords to Plowshare. I've kind of gone on and off having the Bolt in the main as well. But I have had a lot of games where I can draw as many cards as I want in my opponent's upkeep, and I just need to make sure that I don't lose on that turn. So having a Swords to Plowshare, because you at the end of the cycle will also get to play whatever mana rock you are using. So if it's Black Lotus, I'll say I make as much mana as I want, leave my Black Lotus in play, and then in your upkeep draw 41 or whatever, and use that mana to hopefully not die on that turn. There's definitely been times where I wanted some more instant speed removal, but things like Chainsaw, you were asking about Chainsaw before, and that was kind of a consideration coming into the day of there was some discussion, especially going to the Lotus event, of more people playing Clarion Conqueror main deck, and that card is very difficult to beat. It turns off, I think, basically this whole deck.
Yeah, it's like artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers all in one thing. Yeah,
and
surprising in my deck.
Not just that, I played against that card 3 times, and I don't know why they designed it this way, but the art for the card, it's blue. It looks like a blue card, like the color blue. So I went to, I wanted to blast it. I'm like, I can't do anything.
Yeah, the psychic damage.
Yeah, it's so brutal.
Is that the old art version?
Yeah, but all of my opponents had the old art version. It was obnoxious. I'm like, stop playing these blue cards. I thought you were a white deck.
You said blue version. I'm thinking, I do think, I agree with you. I think the old art version is very bluish. And I went, okay.
Oh, I've just looked it up. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, Lime, it has a white card frame, but this alt art thing is nonsense. It's like acidic, yeah. The second most prominent color is green, and after that, red. The only white thing on the thing is the text and the singular white pit.
And that's the worst part of it, because I'm not reading the text of the card.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're not here to read cards. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, look, I've got a question. Kind of, where you're talking about the legacy versus vintage thing. One of the perhaps vintage lessons for decks like this is what's that? Is it PO, paradoxical outcome? Have you considered, because you've got a lot of both 1-drops which make mana, but also 0-drop artifacts. Is there a potential paradoxical outcome version of this, or?
I can I can send you another Moxfield link because I've got one for that. I think there is a mono blue. I think for paradoxical outcome, one, I would want more zeros in the deck than this. I think not by a lot, because there aren't actually that many playable zeros in Highlander. I don't think I ended up on... No, I think Jeweled Amulet on top of the zeros that are currently here is probably one of the better ones.
Yeah.
But you fall... Once you get past the first 6 0-drops...
Yeah, then you're playing Shield Spear.
The quality drops up very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be playing a Paradoxical Outcome deck without Tolarian Academy as well.
Well, I
This,
was thinking, obviously, because this deck is currently a bit overpointed, is there a world, or just for the interest of someone who doesn't own a Black Lotus but wants to try with this kind of deck, is there a world where instead of Lotus, you just combo off of the LED like you're saying, but you play like Tolarian Academy or something as like your, extra, bogus mana source?
yeah, absolutely. There was I think the early version of this deck when I wasn't playing Lotus, because I don't actually own a Lotus. I'm not that lucky, but I've sort of consistently borrowed Lotuses, and times when I haven't, I built versions of this that were like less color, and I built versions of this that were less color, and they had things like Sahili, the sort of the blue-red split mana Sahili,
Oh, yeah,
uh, that can copy other artifacts. So anything that makes, I think there are quite a lot of powerful effects now that make a lot of artifacts. There was a Forensic Gadgeteer was one that was always very good as well, because that allowed you to go infinite with Basalt Monolith. Effects like that. I've also built a lot of Zerda. Zerda is a card that I think is close to being broken in Highlander. I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about Zerda decks adjacent to this, especially with the Auroch Salvagers combo, because you can fit the Auroch Salvagers combo in with Zerda in the sideboard. You unfortunately can't do Painter's Servant, which is a bit awkward, but you can Karn it out of the sideboard anyway.
Yeah, I mean, kind of speaking of Zerda, like one of the cards which I think is, a bit, I don't know, it's weird that it's not here, but I'm wondering what the logic is the XX, is it Walking Ballista, the one which, the classic I have infinite mana, ping you out.
Yeah, early versions definitely had it. There's the another legacy combo which I used to have in this deck, and basically cut just before the Lotus event, is the Walking Blister and Phyrexian Devourer.
Oh, yeah.
As long
You're gonna have to
as
explain that one, because that's really going into the memory banks.
I was about to say I'm happy to explain what Phyrexian Devourer, the card specifically says, because it's a very confusing card. It's a 6 mana artifact creature. It is a 1/1. It has an activated ability, which I think has been errated to exile the top card of your deck. Put X 1/1 counters on this creature, where X is the converted mana cost of the spell that gets exiled. But it also has a key line of text that says, if Phyrexian Devourer's power is greater than 7, bury it. So the idea is you entomb it into the graveyard, you give its activated ability to something else with Agatha Soul Cauldron, and whatever else you give it its power to, or its ability to, doesn't have that key line of text that says bury it if its power is greater than 7. So anything that you now have with its ability, you can keep exiling cards from the top of your deck, put as many 1/1 counters on it, and hopefully attack for lethal. So that was one that I had originally, and at that point also had Walking Ballista, because either you can give Walking Ballista that power and then make it a 20/20 and ping your opponent to death, or you could, in kind of very long game Christmas Land, you could put both of the activated abilities under Agatha Soul Cauldron, and then that's a combo where any creature is now lethal.
I was like, that's actually better than I remember it being, because doesn't that mean that in theory, if you had like just say Entomb in hand and Soul Cauldron on the bin, you could innocently like attack for one of the Baleful Strix, and then if they go no blocks, it's like, okay, great, Entomb the Devourer, Soul Cauldron, the Baleful Strix, getcha. Like because the Devourer's ability, like you don't have to tap it or anything, right? You can just do it as much as you want.
Yeah. I had a bunch of games when I was playing it where that happened. I would just, my opponent would be playing white black mid range. I would attack with my Goblin Engineer innocently, and they would say, "No box, I'll take 1." And I'd say, "Actually, before that happens, show them the combo, and now it's a 22/22 attacking them." And they go, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." The problem is Phyrexian Devourer is just so bad as a card itself. You probably need more discard outlets in the deck, whereas the only ones you really have at the moment are Faithless Looting and discarding your hand with Dragon Engine. I spent a little bit of time thinking about I'm blanking on the card name. The sort of the 2 mana 2/3 that discards a card and draw a card when it enters. But there's a bunch of like ETB effect discards, also through artifacts. I think I've been trying to figure out if there's any artifact that discards a card that I would theoretically want to play in the deck.
Well, I mean,
The
there's
closest
blood fountain, right? Like that makes the blood, which has that effect, and then you could like fiddlebend the blood fountain into something else later, or pick up creatures. Um,
Wait, can't that Devourer combo work the other way with Agatha's Soul Cauldron? If you have the Devourer on the field, and then you Soul Cauldron the Devourer with a Walking Ballista in the graveyard, so long as nothing in your deck is CMC 6. Well, you can always activate it instant speed, right? Can't you just exile a card, ping, 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 activate, ping, ping, ping?
Yeah, you can. It's obviously the difficulty of getting a 6-mana artifact into play.
Yeah.
Well, look, you got this Aureox Salvages right here. Now,
yeah.
pay no attention that you can return the Walking Ballista from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, kind of as I said before, once you have infinite mana, you don't need to jump through that many hurdles to have lethal. And the hardest part is getting the infinite mana. Once you're there, what to do with it, usually not a problem. Having the multiple like kind of game plans is really good. So being able to have Phyrexian Devour in the deck, you can probably a number of ways to get it. Obviously, you can one of the nice things about Goblin Engineer is that while it says you can only sort of reanimate and or swap using its ability for CMC 3 or less, the actual search and put into your graveyard, the entomb effect from the card itself is any artifact. And so part of the reason why Devourer is played in Legacy, and again, I saw this in, Painter Servant decks in Legacy because they're kind of playing all the shell cards for it, is that they have the 4 engineers. So it's much more consistent to get it into the graveyard, whereas here you only have engineer plus entomb. I may theoretically go back to it at some point. It is very fun, and yeah, I think I would incentivize trying to get an extra discard effect. I like the Blood Fountain. The other one that I had sometimes thought of was, I don't know how to pronounce the name of the card. Asmarana Magica Decidicaro.
We need to
Order
listen
card.
to our previous member of the 7 Point Cast chat who immediately blitzed it out without even thinking. So good. Is Capers, the food deck god.
I know Cape as well, the food deck god. The only reason why I know the name vaguely is because of the song for it.
Oh, the MTG Remy thing,
yeah. yeah. Every time I have to think about pronouncing that name, I just think about that song. But the artifact half of that, probably playing Asmo as well, but the artifact half of that, which is I'm gonna forget the name of the card. Yes, the cookbook.
Yeah.
Which is tutorable by most things in your deck if you wanted to. Like you can get it with Tezzeret, you can get it with Urza Saga, you can get it with the Trinket Mage. So that's another thing that I thought about for a while as a sort of free discard outlet. The card itself is not really impressive, so it's kind of borderline, but if I needed more ways to get things into the graveyard, then that would probably be one of my first calls.
I reckon, like, if you're going down that road, one of the things I've definitely seen with it is where, I mean, obviously Mox Diamond becomes a lot better because it's just like Mox Diamond, you can immediately cast the Asmoran and the Cookbook. But I've seen decks where, like, they just play, like, Sunring Titan and Chaos Defiler, and so in the middle of nowhere of the game, you'll be like, oh yeah, Goblin Engineer, put Sunring Titan into the bin, animate dead, boom. Like, it's or like even the Noxious Gearhulk I've seen every now and then, like a for the real dreamland of fiddle bending your Chaos Defiler into the Noxious Gearhulk and really just out mid-ranging everything in front of you.
It's tough because a lot of these things I thought about having in the sideboard, especially these like big artifacts that you could reanimate. I find that a lot of people's sideboard graveyard hate against me. And kind of incidentally, I'm often cutting a lot of my graveyard synergy post board. Just because most of it is related to the combo element. So when I'm playing the mid-range plan, people kind of have, I think, like the two game plans that they're trying to stop me doing post board, which is the artifact general stuff, again with like Null Rod, Stony Silence, that kind of thing, and the graveyard side. I just don't tend to play the graveyard that much post-board. And so I played a couple practice games where I did have, the Wormcoil engine on top of the Chaos Defiler, the stuff that I was trying to reanimate. And people were bringing in, like, Rest in Peace against me and stuff. And I didn't really understand. Like, I think I understood, but it ended up just being that I could play around it. And I didn't need to worry about it that much post-board because I had the Deadpool, the Chaos Defiler, the Quantum Riddler, and I was just playing things to the board, which was kind of a nice pivot anyway.
Well, look, let's in the interest of time talk about Mono Red Storm. Another one of these, just such a cool deck for people who are like, in a format which is often dominated by just, like our previous deck, all the best things in as many colors as possible. This deck arguably could be more trying to keep someone honest, unless it was Storm, of course. But of course it's Storm. It's not really doing that. But it's got a lot of red pips. It's got the most red pips out of any deck, in the whole format. Tell us about it. How does it work? Why mono red? Like, why would someone even entertain mono red over like a different Storm list? I know it's got Black Lotus, but maybe if there's a non-Black Lotus build, tell us about what that would look like.
I like to say keeping people honest when this is like extremely degenerate.
Yeah.
This is I've been working on this baby for a long. I love this deck so much. I actually, in the interest of the Black Lotus comment, I think that this deck probably should not be on Black Lotus, and I will not be playing it with Black Lotus moving forward. And I started this deck without Lotus as well. I think the first event that I think I top aided one of the what was it? Like one of the Highlander Friday events on the regional championships. I think that was one of the first events that I did okay with this deck in. And that was when I was playing Mana Crypt, I think, in this deck.
Okay.
Now again, I think Mana
that's
Crypt
the third
was
time. God damn.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just didn't even realize it. I think that was still, an opponent at that point. Mono red. The idea behind this deck was that there are so many cost reducers for red specifically, thinking about like the fact that you have the Ruby Medallion, you get Bergie and Ral. Bergie's one of those cards that I think when it came out, I remember the committee talking about keeping it on the watch list for how powerful it was. And then it kind of disappeared very quickly. But it was a card that I was always pretty interested in. And it has been fantastic in this deck. I would say the thing that keeps bringing me back to this deck is every single set, kind of without fail, within the every set that's released within the like commander side of the product, they always print red commander cards that are kind of busted for Highlander or for other formats. And I always like keeping an eye out for them. And there's been some more printed since this deck, since this version of the deck was made that would be included. But things like Yeska's Will, I'm trying to remember what some of the new ones are, but there's a version of March of Reckless Joy that came out, like a new version that has like its own version of Flashback. There's just Embrace the Unknown in here, which was a card that's been very good for this deck. There's just so many good cards that get printed in the commander set that every single time I look at it and I go, I could probably build just like a mono red deck. And the thing that stops, the main thing I think that pulls me towards mono red as well, or like singular color basically, is we talked before about fast mana being like, artifact mana or big mana being the thing that the committee is mostly pointing, right? So your options are either, in a combo deck like this, your options are either play multiple colors and, play a bunch of rituals in different colors, or get the mana somewhere else. And the conclusion I came to for this one was I can get the mana out of my mana base, right? You get to play so many dual lands or so many like soul lands if you're willing to stick to basically one color.
Yeah, like the Sandstone Needle type thing.
Yeah, so you've got, even with this deck, right? You've got the Sandstone Needle, you've got the Dwarven Ruins, City of Traders, Ancient Tomb. I think for now in this version that's it, but I think in some of the versions I've also had Crystal Vein.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to not make your, mana pips too difficult, you can get a lot of the mana acceleration and or like quote unquote rituals through your mana base. And then you don't actually need that many hard rituals in the deck to go off.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because you very much need to like not be a coward in the sense that like I've got my own little build of this, which I sometimes play. And I find often at times it's just like, oh, okay, this could work if I like sacrifice 2 of my lands, but you never really know with Storm. You know what I mean? It's not like the whole line is in front of you. Often it's like, it could work because I have a cost reducer and Ren's Resolve, and then if that hits another one or whatever, then I'm off to the races. Do you find that you have to kind of, just go balls to the wall for lack of a better phrase? Or do you usually kind of like wait until it's fairly predictable before going in on stuff like Dwarven Ruins?
No, I think this version. I think you hit the nail on the head. This version, especially, you kind of have to go balls to the wall sometimes, which
Yeah.
I enjoy. I think I know people who play the more traditional Storm list. Uh, they're bigger brain than me. They very much want to, plan the whole line out, make sure I'm here tapping 6 mana and putting Hazard's Undying Fury into play, and I'm hoping that I hit 4 good cards. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I don't know. I really enjoy it. I do think it's also powerful. Like, I think this one has a relatively fast-ish clock. Again, you have to get a bit lucky, but casting those spells are just so fun, and I do think they're pretty powerful. Like, Hazard's Undying Fury has one of the nice things about this deck is that one, Hazard's Undying Fury has basically everything in the deck. I think bar basically Echo of Aeons is a hit. And I will say the other nice thing for those kind of effects in a monocolored deck is you get the flip lands, right? So you get things like Valakut's Awakening, you get things like Pinnacle Monk. There's a couple more like Shadow Skull Smashing. You get things like that, and there are probably a couple more that I would think about including in the deck. But you can make your mana base such that when you play something like Undying Fury or something like I would have to remember the name of the card, even though it's probably on the screen somewhere. But I'll Ignite the Future, which is again another commander card. I'm not sure how many people know it, but it's kind of an exile the top 3, play them until the end of your next turn. But if it's cast from the graveyard, all those spells are free.
Yeah.
So flipping spells like Valakut Awakening or Pinnacle Monk, which normally would be lands and would be misses, but here you can actually get value out of them. I think it's like quite powerful to have something like that, and they do things. Valakut Awakening is one of the better cards in the deck. Pinnacle Monk brings a ritual back or something. Yeah, I think you're asking about Black Lotus before. I don't think Black Lotus or Yawgmoth's Will should probably be in this deck anymore. They are obviously both very powerful cards, but it's hard to fit the points in, and you don't really need them. You have enough flashback effects within the pile through like Past in Flames or getting some of the effects out of the sideboard with Wish effects that I think that they aren't needed. So if someone wanted to play this deck, I think the most expensive card that you probably have to deal with is Lion's Eye Diamond and probably Wheel of Fortune, which is, I guess, kind of budget.
Speaking of the wheels and also all the impulse draw, I see you've got a green splash in here for Veil of Summer. Would Fastbond make the cut just to as kind of like a pseudo ritual when you're going off?
Fastbond is. I think when I built this deck, Fastbond was still a point. Or like this version of the deck, I think Fastbond was still a point. So I can definitely see that. I actually haven't looked at it that closely. Fastbond. Sorry, the green splash. The mana base for this deck, I've usually included a majority of the red like duels for sideboard cards. This is, I think, going back to what you were saying about pivot sideboards. I've basically never had a hard pivot sideboard with this deck. I mean, you've got Monastery Mentor and Shieldred, which kind of count, but the rest of the sideboard is dealing with dealing with hate, right? It's like Fragmentize, it's Static Prison, Rip Apart, things that get rid of your opponent's, rule of law effects, or God forbid the red curse that takes damage every time you cast a spell. That card's so hard to beat.
Oh, the curse.
Maddening Hex.
Yeah, Maddening Hex.
Yeah, Maddening Hex. Yeah,
We're even so hateful of Archon of Emeria that we have Lithomatic Barrage.
That was.
It actually makes sense because you could be playing like the similar to the Stormless, like Chorus Steelcutter and what's the other one? Vivi in the sideboard here with like no real extra work.
I don't think I would want to be playing Corey Steelcutter in this deck. I could see Vivi, but in general, it's hard. Monastery Mentor has been generally very good in my post-board games. Shieldred is the one that I've often really been happy with in this deck because you have the wheel effects. Because doing that and then just Wheel of Fortune my opponent feels very powerful. I think I would also, if again, it's not going to happen, but if Orcish Bowmasters was 0 points, I think that would also be in the sideboard. And it's a card I've thought about trying to slot in this deck at some point. The biggest downside is the mana, in terms of mana acceleration, that you only have the one color. So I do think this deck also should probably have the black rituals in it, just because they're so powerful, right? Like, basically, Dark Ritual plus the 2-mana one. For some reason, my
Cabal
brain's
Ritual.
not working. Yeah, Cabal Ritual. Thank you. Are just exceptionally powerful cards, and I think they should probably be in the deck as well, just as extra rituals.
Yeah, one
because
of
you
one of
have
the observations I made when I was trying to put this together is what the funnel is, because like the impulse effects, there's like a limitless supply of them. I for example, I'd even cut Embrace the Unknown for the Doctor Who one, just because you get to see one more card, and every now and then you might suspend it on turn one. And it's similar with the the over the top cards like your Hazarets or your Invoke Calamities. Like, there aren't that many of them, but you also don't want that many of them. And like even now with Past in Flames effects, there's like three of them or something. There's of course Past in Flames. There's one which is like a one-sided wheel or Past in Flames. And there's like, I don't know if you've seen this, but in Avatar, that like the Commander product, to reference your earlier point, there's like a card which just flashes back a 3 or less card for free with Storm. Like so that, but the funnel, the thing which there really is basically like a very limited supply of is free mana. Like free mana is the thing which they're not printing more of, and yeah, those like 2 extra rituals in black, they are very tempting, right?
Yeah. Storm of Memories. I know the card you're talking about. I have definitely. It's on my consideration list. I think it's harder
Only
in this one.
consideration.
Well, it's mana value 3 or less, and so it's 5 mana. It's got Storm, but it's exile instant sorcery 3 or less from your graveyard at random, and so if you can do it enough that you're going to hit the whole graveyard, that's fine. But just thinking about how this deck often has played out, I'm not sure if that's something that I'm going to want that aggressively. It could be one of the sideboard cards. I think one of the nice things about this deck with the Wish package, having Burning Wish plus also Wish itself, is you can fit most of those effects into the sideboard and be pretty happy, right? Like the card I was thinking of before that was printed relatively recently was Will of the Jeskai.
Yeah,
which
that
is
one.
It's the 4 mana sorcery. It's like the dual mode kind of thing where you can either Past in Flames, or you can discard. Each player discards their hand and draws 5 cards. And having really versatile cards like that in the sideboard that you can get off Wish effects is really nice, because you don't. It just means in any situation, I go, okay, my hand is kind of dead, but I've got this Wish effect. Man, I really wish that I could draw 5 cards. And you're like, okay, actually, I can do that. Or you're like, well, my graveyard's stocked. I don't want to draw 5 cards, but I want to cast all the spells in my graveyard. I can also do that without having to take that many sideboard slots. The draw to effects. You're right about Embrace the Unknown. I think there probably should also be in this deck the green sort of split card that on the backside, basically impulses to the green creature.
Oh yeah. That's the Questing Druid. And there's a new one, Opera Love Song, which is another like just 2 mana, get 2 cards.
Yeah, the ability to draw cards in this deck is not inherently the problem, right? I think if I had to pick any deck, like any quote unquote bad matchup when I was playing this deck quite a lot, it was the more hard counterspell decks. Because you can draw cards, whatever, and then and at some point you are drawing so many cards that they do have to answer it, right? If you're playing something like March of Reckless Joy, or you're just igniting the future and drawing 3 cards, you do start to overwhelm the counterspell deck sometimes. For a while, I had a Lutri in the sideboard of this deck, and I think that I might go back to that. Lutri is like really powerful, also because it's almost always costing 2 with your Ruby Medallion effects. Is that I think that it kind of plays around counterspells relatively well, because you can, ramp up, quote unquote, with your mana base, just put it in your hand, and then at any point you can play a large spell leaving 2 red up, and your opponent kind of has to decide, do I counter this? And if it gets countered, I can copy it in response. You have a lot of agency with that.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing as well, of course, which is not currently in the deck, but I imagine in the second version of it, where you in the updated version is the new Stormscale Dragon. Like that there just are way more, really serviceable kill conditions.
Yeah, again, every single I think part of what brings me back to this deck, like I mentioned before, is every single set that comes out, I look at the I always take will take a mental note to look at the commander cards that get printed. And without fail, there's almost always a couple extra cards that could fit into this deck. And I go, okay, that's pretty cool. I guess the other thing about this deck that I can also change the build of it was when I originally was working on this deck, a lot of my incentive for it was to bypass mental misstep. When that was 0 points. Now mental misstep is still played to some extent, like it's still played.
30%
So
of
you
decks,
kind
by
of
the way.
Yeah.
What was the percentage? 30?
30. Yeah.
Wow, that's okay. Wow. So you're still playing around with this deck. Like you don't have the nice thing about this deck is you don't have that many 1-mana spells that you care about. Like Mana Vault is probably the biggest one, and at that point, I'm again it at 2, not 100% certain if you would still play it, but your 1-drops aren't that impressive, right? Like Rider Flame, Overmaster, Gitaxian Probe, right? Like those are not ones that you care that much about in terms of them getting mental misstepped. So you kind of just skip it because all your 2-mana spells are functionally 1-mana spells in this deck once you get a cost reducer. So you get a Hell Awakening out, and then all of your Ren's Resolves are just a 1-mana draw 2 cards. But they cannot be mental misstepped. And so, yeah, I think when I was trying to build Storm decks, I kept getting a mental misstepped every single game. And I went, okay, enough of that. I'm just not going to play 1-drops.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very cool, neat side effect. Do you reckon that there's like a version of this deck which, because I know it's obviously very slot efficient to essentially remove all the kill cons from the main and just like get them off the wishes. Do you think there's a version of the deck which plausibly puts, for example, like Elemental Eruption, Stormscale Dragon, maybe even like Empty of Warrens in the main, and just says, you know what, I just got to draw my hand, and on turn 1 or 2, I'm going to put 10 plus power on the board and just say la vie. Or is it or do you find that the best way to do it is to always kind of like full storm, so to speak, so that the storm count's like so unbelievably high, like anything will do the job?
I think that would probably depend on what decks I'm expecting. I have played a version of that before, and it is really good, right? Being able to, again, we were talking about Hazard's Undying Fury. It's worded weirdly in such a way that you kind of get the storm count as you put, like, you'd put the spells on the stack and kind of get the storm count because they're all casting, but you have to put them all on the stack together.
Right.
So you can kind of add +4 storm count or plus, I guess, 3 if you hit a storm spell and then let that one resolve.
Yeah.
I would say if I thought that there was going to be an exceedingly high counterspell meta, I would think about that. Putting the Empty the Warrens is probably worth the slot. I'm not sure if I would be playing like the Elemental Eruption in the main deck. I think Empty the Warrens and Grape Shot are both cards that could kind of be main deck. I don't know about Tendrils. Part of the reason why this deck doesn't have Tendrils in the sideboard is because I found when I was going off, like I think you'll often find with this deck, when you are going off, you're going off so much that you're not just getting there. You're sitting there with a bonus round. You've got 20 red mana in your pool.
What's it called? It's like the Tyranny of Riches or something.
Embarrassment of riches.
That one, Embarrassment of Riches. Well, look, we're approaching the 1 hour mark. Are there any other final thoughts or conversation topics you want to hit us up with before Lime throws you a quick question or two?
I guess just that I think Highlander, one, is a very cool format, and I really enjoy and how much people put into the format. I also feel like there's a lot of underexplored things in Highlander. I think that people, we've seen a little bit whenever we've opened up the format to big prizes, right? Things like the online tournament that we had a while back that was a Winner Mox, and even the Black Lotus event that really interesting things come out of the side, like come out of sort of left field, I guess. I just think people underexplore the universes beyond and the Highlander and the Commander cards. So I'm a big proponent of making sure you look at enough spoilers and looking at all the extra, like Banished from Another Universe, I think is a card I sort of mentioned before, but one of my favorite cards in Highlander, and I think egregiously underplayed. I think the effect is extremely powerful in a couple of decks, but I think cards like that, people need to keep an eye out more.
Yeah,
for
that's
things
the
in
O-ring
Universe
which has
Beyond.
affinity for historic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's so many decks where it's very easy for that to be a 1-mana Oblivion Ring effect. You know, if your legends count, legendary lands count, so Caracas counts for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of effects like that. Basically, people should keep an eye out for cards more and be willing to try some Universes Beyond and Commander product to look for incredible Highlander cards, because we're allowed to play them. So
Have you got any sneaky tech waiting in the wings? Like, is there a particular card you think people are sleeping on right now, or is it more just more general advice for the next set?
I think general advice. I think for the red deck, the not sneaky, but like I don't think it was in that pile that I showed there, but Inspired Tinkering is exceptional. That card has been good every single time I've cast it. Just 5 mana, 3 cards, 3 treasure. You're cost reducing it. You're copying it. It's winning me the game by itself. So
Yeah, okay.
but yeah, more of a general. Keep an eye out for the cards.
It's funny, that card actually it's so much like Dark Petition. You know what I mean? It's just, except for it's like instead of tutor, it's recall. But they're both
Yeah.
they're both crazy. They're both crazy effects. So like, why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been like an absolute pleasure. Lime, do you want to wrap us up with some quick questions?
Yeah, all right. We've got some quick questions for you. Don't think about them too
Yep.
hard. The first one is, I know you've mentioned Universes Beyond a couple times, but this is probably my favorite quick question to be asking at the moment. What would be your favorite franchise or IP to be converted into a Universes Beyond product?
Oh, damn, it's a tough one. I'm gonna say I don't know if it would be popular or not. Grim Fandango is my favorite game ever, so that one. But in terms of something that is relatively popular, I'd probably say like League of Legends. I think it would be fun. I know they've got their own card game now, but I think that it would fit,
I
thematically
don't
pretty
know
well.
if our format could handle the amount of salt brought in by League of Legends.
All right, that's implying that we don't already have enough salt in our format to begin with. Okay, maybe Bellatrix then.
Oh,
Oh,
yes!
Elatro. Every card is just like a Joker or an actual playing card. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
exactly.
I actually think that might be the most triggering franchise to onboard. Can you imagine like like those bloody alternate art cards they do where they're supposed to look like, music posters or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh
Where
my
you-
god, yes.
Where you literally just have like a deck of cards and like the text is like scribbled on the inside of the diamond or something like that.
Oh,
I mean, people already are upset by like the Yu-Gi, what I think what a lot of people call the Yu-Gi-Oh style cards, the Egyptian kind of ones, and so it would just be an entire pile of unreadable cards.
Yeah, that would be funny. Although, actually, funnily enough, though, with playing cards, are the numbers already where the power and toughness should be?
They can be, yeah.
well, they're on the
Oh.
bottom right and the top left.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that is okay. Well, okay. Here's the really triggering idea, where you put the power on one of those corners and the toughness on the other one of the corners. If you like, turn the card upside down, the power and toughness swap or
One of
something like
those
that.
flip cards. Oh my god.
But you actually flip it upside down. Like when your opponent turns the card around to read it, it's like, no. You need to keep the card this way.
Yeah,
That'd be funny.
which side it's facing depends on what its power and toughness is.
Yeah. All right. Lime, have you got another quick question?
Yeah. Okay. The next one is, what was your first ever non-precon commander?
Non-precon commander. Garve Guru Spores, I think, is a precon. So I think it was what is his name? It's a Legends card. It's his ability is like Bant Fog.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
He's
Angus
like the
Mackenzie?
shepherd guy. He's like
Yeah.
holding a staff.
Yeah. Angus
Is it like
Mackenzie.
Angus Mackenzie. Yeah.
Yes. That was my first ever. When I did play Commander for a little bit. And when I was playing Commander, I wanted it to be like a for fun thing. So I made like a Bant Fog deck, and Angus Mackenzie just spoke to me, especially as a Monty Python fan at the time.
Yeah.
It being like a direct reference for that, I was like, I'm just gonna build this deck.
All right.
I'll tell you a funny, like, on the banned fog, a card which I found to be just so obnoxious in Commander, but people weren't playing, they never play it, is, you know, that spider spike feeder?
Yes, I do.
No, that's a card you want to put under an Agatha's Soul Cauldron, you know, like.
There's
All right, well, look,
one more quick
oh,
question.
one more.
One more, yeah. Not we've returned to three, which is, and I think we might be able to generate a really funny answer. I'd like to know a card that you were absolutely certain that would destroy a format or become a staple, and then just was totally unplayable in practice.
Wait, what?
Like what's
like a card I thought was going to be good but never was.
yeah, like Ben has a lot of those.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's a tough one. What card do I think was going to break a format and never did? I've spent a lot of time. I guess I'll try to think about something for Highlander because I spent a lot of time in a lot of different constructed formats. I think when I saw, why am I blanking on the name of the card? We were talking about Bergie before, and I think Bergie was probably one of the ones that I thought would break Highlander a little bit, and then never did. Especially on the flip side, I remember thinking that you can combo very easily in the same sense as like KCI. I kind of thought that artifacts that sit there with activated abilities were going to break Highlander, and KCI is another one that I think I keep looking at going, surely this card should be breaking Highlander. Oh, actually, you know what is a good one that I think I spent way too long on, is both Zerda and Riddlesmith. Riddlesmith is a card that I think for a very long time I thought I could break in Highlander, and I just never found the right shell for it to break it.
Yeah, Riddlesmith, is that the one in the blue one where you cast an artifact and you loot?
Yes.
Okay, you know my version of this card, and it's funny, like, I was like, deck, I want to put this in a deck with Riddlesmith, I think it's called Mirren Spy. It is Mirren Spy. So this is 2 and a blue for a 1/3 flying, and it has whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may untap target creature. I was like, this is it, Riddlesmith Mirren Spy. This is what's going to absolutely break it, because I'm like, if the creature makes mana, and like, but yeah, no, it just is too hard. It never works.
Yeah, Riddlesmith plus Artificer's Intuition were two cards that I put in the same deck, thinking these cards are busted. They weren't.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point they can be busted, but I could not make them busted.
Yeah, not yet. All right, well, look, that's just been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. Like the decks are really cool, thoughts are really exciting, and look, hopefully, maybe sometime in the future, with a new brew and some other interesting ideas to talk about, we can have you back.
Easy. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, look, guys, thanks very much for listening to this episode. Please follow us on Spotify or YouTube, and if you've got a deck or some interesting thoughts about the format which you'd like to share for us, please reach out to myself or Lime. I promise you we are friendly, and we always are looking for more guests for the podcast. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us, and have a good day. See ya.